And now it's my honor and privilege to introduce our commencement speaker, Mr. Ernst Wilhelm. As most of you probably know, Ernst is a renowned Vedic astrologer known for his profound knowledge and expertise in the field of astrology. With over 30 years of experience, he has established himself as a leader in Vedic astrology, providing accurate predictions and insightful guidance to individuals globally. In addition to being a gifted consultant astrologically, he is also widely recognized for his contributions to Vedic astrology education. He has authored numerous books and created online courses, sharing his vast knowledge with aspiring astrologers worldwide. Ernst's teachings emphasize the importance of studying classical texts, which he translates and interprets. He also emphasizes the importance of mastering intuitive techniques, and he embraces a holistic approach to astrology. I was fortunate to meet Ernst about 25 years ago at an astrology conference. And as I listened to him speak with a voice of authority, both on the podium and elsewhere throughout the conference, I could have probably then predicted that he would become one of the foremost voices in the field of Vedic astrology. The more I listened to Ernst, the more charmed and entranced I became. I was moved by his intellectual brilliance, of course, his spiritual wisdom and knowledge, but also his kindness, his generosity, his open-heartedness, unassuming nature, and strength of conviction. I attended many lectures and online courses of his over the years, and I have all his books, which are tremendous treasures, and I refer to them often. And one of my favorite things about Ernst is his wry sense of humor, which I have been able to enjoy on a few occasions. As an example, when I was studying Muhurta a long time ago, I ran into Ernst at a conference, and I mentioned that I had been learning a great deal from his marvelous book, Classical Muhurta, which I was studying at the time. And he jokingly replied, "Well, then you must be going crazy by now." And we laughed together over that. But I also felt quite relieved to know that it's not just me who found this a particularly challenging aspect of Jyotish studies. And I still do today. And it's also my favorite. And thanks to that book, especially. I own all the leading Vedic astrology software programs, but Ernst's Kala program is my favorite. I use it almost exclusively along with Jyotish, with Solar Fire. Kala is genius and user-friendly, and Ernst and his team offer great customer support. I recommend his software often to my own students and colleagues, and will continue to do so. Our faculty member, Gizem, recently mentioned to me that Ernst very generously donated his software to several of her Turkish students whose lives had been devastated by the earthquake that occurred last February in Turkey. And that really said it all to me about who Ernst Wilhelm is. It's my pleasure and great honor to introduce you, Ernst. We are so fortunate to have you here with us today. Thank you. And this concludes my welcome address.
Thank you very much for all your words. Yeah, it's very much surprised. I'm very honored to hear your words and to be here today.
I would just like to thank you so much for the welcoming address, Professor Swanson. Thank you so much for that. And what an amazing introduction to Mr. Wilhelm there. And, I would like to welcome our distinguished guest, Mr. Wilhelm, to, give out our graduation commencement.
Well, again, thank you very, very much for your warm words. That really blows me away. I hope I don't forget what I wanted to talk about.
It's all true.
Well, I really appreciate it. And, Yeah, thank you for everything. And as Dennis said when we were just chatting a few minutes, we have a long history. ACVA, um, I came about a little after ACVA got started a couple of years. They'd been running conferences. I think the first conference I attended was maybe the fifth one in 1997. And that was all really just to the goodness of Dennis. I'm such a lone wolf, and we had a mutual friend, and Dennis made an effort to invite me to the conference. He made an effort to make me feel welcome there and to take the APRA certification back then. And you know, and it always surprised me how Aqua was willing to make this lone wolf have a place to come home if he ever needed a home, and I really feel that particularly today. I was very surprised to be invited for this because I am, such a lone wolf. So it really means a lot to me. And we all share this beautiful world together, but all of us on this planet, but we share an additional beautiful world together as astrologers, whether we're whatever kind we are, whether we're Vedic, Western, Chinese, we all share this beautiful world where, in a way, because of our problems in our lives and the things we lacked in, we needed a bigger world than Earth. You know, we had to go out there a little further. I mean, there's a part of us that lives on these different planets. And we talk about these planets like they're part of us and like they're home. We're not just living on Earth. We've embraced a larger world, such a large world. And what I wanted to talk about today is how in this huge world of astrology that we're living in, that we're all here to contribute at this time. These sciences are coming back after years, generations of neglect. And ACVA has been a big part of that. Everyone is playing a part of that in some way. I remember once I had a very prominent astrologer. He ordered my videos. I was shocked. And then he called me for a tech problem. I said, "Are you so and so, this really famous astrologer?" And he makes a joke to shrug it off. And I said, "Why are you getting my videos? I mean, why?" He goes, "Well, I find that it doesn't matter who I talk to about astrology and they just began. Somehow I always learn something. You know, we really do have all something to contribute because this is a science about us and we're all different. We're all going to experience something in our charts differently. And maybe one day we can mathematically define those differences perfectly, but until then, we need everyone contributing in any way they can. So I want everyone out there to know that you can contribute. All of us can contribute and are, even sometimes without our knowledge. And ACVA obviously has contributed to this foundation of astrology in not only the West, but throughout the world, really, as become a worldwide institution, has contributed with a foundation, which is very, very important. And everyone needs to continue to contribute, and everyone is, whether they know it. I wanted to talk a little bit about how people can contribute. Okay, now the obvious thing is a lot of people are like, "I want to do readings." Okay, readings is really important. We need good readers out there, people who can plug away and not get worn out by clients calling in the middle of the night. That's the rare breed. I really admire those types. But I wanted to tell people whose vision is to do readings. There's two things you can do to make your practice fly. One of them is you go deep into the psyche of the person. If you can figure out how to go deep into the person, you'll say things that change their outlook on life, change who they are, change their view of their reality, and essentially heal them. And if you go deep into people, they're going to come back and they're going to tell their friends about you. Okay. If you train in NLP or psychology and you learn the power of words and jokes and the things you're saying, great. Or maybe you have a natural aptitude. You need to go deep. If you're not getting enough clients, go deeper. Find a way to go deeper into the person. If you can go deep into the psyche of a person, into who they are, and may help them with their self-acceptance and growth and healing, you won't need to do YouTube videos to get clients. Okay? They'll tell your friends. The other way is you can be a master predictor. If you can predict the future reliably, you will be a busy astrologer. Those are the two ways to ensure your practice. Okay? They're guaranteed to work. So I really encourage people to go deep into the astrology if you want to do readings or learn to do those predictions. Okay? A lot of people, I meet so many people who are intimidated with doing astrology. You know, when they go, oh, I've been studying 5 years, I don't feel ready. You're ready if you want to at some point. Really, that's my definition of when you're ready. If at some point you want to do readings, you're ready to do it now. The fact that you have the desire to do readings makes you ready. I remember when I started, I knew so little, but I took that little bit and I went as deep as I could with it. And people were happy. You know, if you learn everything, you're going to do less good readings, actually. You'll be spread too thin, the buffet will be too big, and you won't give a full meal on anything. Learn what you want to learn, what's interesting you, and apply it deep. If it's one thing and you apply it deep, you will be successful in that one thing, and you will attract the people who need that one thing. I know astrologers who are making great careers, helping lots of people with two or three things, like two or three simple things that I could teach you in a day. And their whole practice is built around this, where they're literally making 15 grand, 20 grand a month simply on two or three things. And most importantly, making a difference in the people's lives. We're all this big body of astrologers, and all of us together are going to do everything in Vedic astrology. You know, we're all going to do it together. But all of us, we only can do the one or two or three things that we can do at any one time. If I give a person a reading now, I'm going to use completely different things than I did 10 years ago. Is it because they're better? No. It's because they're what I'm most focused on now. It's the only reason. Because they're more important to my reality now. And I can't do it all. So do what you're drawn to do. That's what your consciousness is going to be open to. That's what you're going to be excited about. That's along the lines of your inspiration and intuition will flow. And that's where you'll make the difference and attract the right people who need that. Don't be scared to open your mouth. Okay. You can always help. I remember once I did a reading for a daughter of the daughter of some students who really got into it. They were talking about astrology all the time, and they said to her daughter, "You got to get a good reading. You got to get a reading." Finally, she came in. Worst reading of my life. I mean, my mouth was like glued shut. I felt like retarded. I'm like, wow, I bombed that reading. Then she gets up, she just gets her butt off the seat about 6 inches and flops back down and says, "How accurate is any of this?" I said, honestly, for you, it's not very accurate at all. I said, see this thing you got going in the fifth house? This means that you're just not going to benefit from astrology. You'll get your wisdom, you'll get your answers, you're going to learn what you need to learn in life. You're just not going to do it with astrology. And she just lit up, smiling. You know, she goes, "Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. I'm with my parents. I live with my parents. All they do is talk about astrology. I feel like an alien because I don't relate to it at all. And I feel good about myself that I that astrology is not for me and I don't have to worry about and just let my parents do that thing." So I gave her peace at home for me to do a terrible reading and tell her one useful thing. And she was very happy with the reading. So you never know what the person came for. She didn't come for a reading. She came to be told that, look, don't worry that you don't like astrology. That doesn't mean you're weird, okay? That's what she needed to hear. So you just never know. But realize if someone shows up in front of you, they need to know something from you. Otherwise, they couldn't be there. So just start opening your mouth with what you have whenever you get the motivation and the prompting, and you'll see yourself help people, okay? Now, the beautiful thing about this world is that we, like all sciences in the world, are really in an infancy state. You know, when I'm in India, I do readings and people bring me their old horoscopes that were made in the 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s. I handwritten at their birth. They've been keeping these horoscopes for, decades now. And they hand me their chart. And most of the time, it's just a Rashi chart and a Chandra Lagna chart. There's not even a Navamsha. you know? What that tells me is that, wow, this world of Vargas is a world of research, you know? There is so much stuff in astrology that we have the privilege of diving into deeper than many generations of astrologers have because we have the help of computers now that we could churn through stuff at an incredible rate. And so everyone's research and ideas and insights are a valuable part of the contributions we need to make. There is so much we still need to learn. You know, I made that joke. A friend of mine, when Dr. Cicera mentioned I'd be at this convention, she said, "What, you're graduating?" And I made the joke that I don't know enough yet to graduate, you know? And I feel that way, you know? I'm not ready to graduate from Vedic astrology and say I know what I'm doing, you know? And that's what I love about it. That guarantees I'm not going to be bored, you know? So realize that everyone's experience, everyone's insight is part of the important contribution. And everyone's not going to care about your insights, though, or your contribution. They're not be interested. Why? It doesn't mean because it's not correct or useful or good. It's simply because we're all chasing our own bone out here, you know? Like I have certain needs I have for astrology. Everyone has a certain need that they're driven to fulfill in astrology. And that insight you have, that technique you've developed might not support what they're chasing with astrology, but someone else will be. Okay. But realize everyone is contributing here. We need to continue. We're so lucky to be in this world that just is never ending as long as you're motivated. Okay. It's really my wish for all these graduating students. And of course, I have no idea how long you've been studying astrology, but what I find is that when people get into astrology, they just think about it day and night. There's just this hunger for it, you know? And I find that lots of times this lasts about 2 years, this totally thirsty, hungry state. Some people it lasts longer. Okay. Now, if it lasts longer, you're kind of lucky and you're kind of cursed at the same time, you know? You're lucky because you're going to take astrology a lot further. But I find that people who get the hunger for about 2 years have enough time to drink enough in that state where they're just soaking it up to become competent in some aspects of astrology, okay? Then some people are going to just be hungry for years, maybe decades, maybe until they die, okay? This constant thirst. And of course, you're going to learn a lot more. But I've also found that you don't need to know all that. In 2 years of deep hunger and thirst and really learning and soak stuff up, you can learn enough to become a competent astrologer. And then as you use that, even though you'll be more relaxed about your astrology studies, you'll still get better and better and get more and more experience with that. And it'll become a finer and finer tool. Okay. So just realize that everyone has a what I call a study window where their whole essence needs to absorb astrology. And what you learn during that time is going to carry you through the rest of your astrology life. And it's going to be, you know, and if it's only 1 or 2 years, don't sweat it. Don't feel like you have to study forever for hard. Like I know someone learned 2 or 3 things in 2 or 3 years and has a $20,000 practice right now. Okay. Because that's how powerful astrology is, you know? If we go to war, you just need 1 or 2 guns, you know? You don't need to bring every gun ever made to the battlefield. And that's the same thing here, okay? Um, the other thing that's really important that I would really like to see happen more with astrology is more brotherhood, sisterhood between the different types of astrological systems out there, whether it's Chinese astrology, Vedic astrology, Western astrology, even human design. Anything to do with planets, if, you know, planets and time are part of it, there's a use for it. And the thing you need could be anywhere. The next thing you need for your evolution as an astrologer. And our evolution of an astrologer coincides with the evolution of ourself. We need to learn something about ourselves, and we're going to stumble around until we find the thing that's going to teach us that thing we need to know to get through the next year of our life, that next hard dasha, that next growth spurt, whatever. And I really encourage everyone to be open to it. I really like to call us zodiacal astrologers. If we use the zodiac, I like to call us zodiacal astrologers, versus time astrologers like Chinese astrologers, who focus on time. And there's a whole system of time-centered astrology in India too. It's all about Kala, time. But we don't see much of it here, but we see a lot of it in India still. A lot of small families just predict things based on time, and they don't pay that much attention to the planets, actually. So there's this world to dive into, and I just want everyone to realize, don't let your doubts get in the way that you haven't learned enough. You have a brain, you have the ability to perceive your experiences, and you have a chart. Those are the three things you need, Your perception, really just to your perceiving, you have a chart, and you'll swim through that and find something
Oh, this
beautiful.
is a graduation for today. Oh,
So,
I'm not on
Um,
video.
so I find, and I wanted to just talk again. One of the reasons I wanted to focus on contribution, because I find so many people don't want to do readings, don't want to have a practice, maybe just for their friends and family. I really want to encourage everyone to put their 2 cents in wherever they can, though. So even if you never want to do a reading, you're still playing with it. You're still discovering. You're still learning. Realize that you still have something to contribute, to provide, something that can. I remember one time I was just talking to someone. I don't remember even what it was about, so long ago. I was working on an astrology problem, and someone who really has just recently studied just said one thing that made my brain just go beep. It just pushed that button. That was the last little idea I needed to complete the big picture, That someone, I don't remember who it was now, unfortunately, had in their brain, you know? We're all building this beautiful world together, and it's in its infancy. We've come so far since the 90s, and, late 80s, 90s, Vargas started becoming more talked about. I mean, really, that's only a few decades that people have been emphasizing Vargas. There's other dashas, and it's a fresh world. It's like we're going to the moon, and no one's really been there in the way we can go there now with our computers and our community of teachers and students who can just talk, In ancient India, they had interchange with Persia and the Greeks, and they traded back and forth astrology things. There's words in the old classics that are Greek words that there is no Sanskrit meaning of. They're actually Greek words. And they would have killed to be able to talk to their Greek friends and their Persian friends the way we can talk to each other now. And I hope that we start doing that more, that we do talk to our Greek and Persian astrologer friends more and help them as they can possibly help us and make this zodiacal community more open, more flexible, more open-minded, while we stick to the techniques that work for what we're doing, wherever they're found, The wonderful thing about Vedic astrology is that in the Dark Ages, the least amount of knowledge was lost in India, thanks to the Himalayas. We owe, the preservation of astrology to the Himalayas. Persian astrology was well preserved there as the Tajika system. Almost anything that you found in other system of astrology, you could stumble across in some book from India. A good chance it's never been translated into English or even Hindi. So India is really the last existing library of the greatest astrology techniques. That's where we're lucky to have stumbled into India. The stuff in the West got ruined. My joke is, I bet the Library of Alexandria had a perfect copy of Jaimini Sutras. That's my joke. With commentary. You'd wonder what we lost in the West. that is in India. But what we want to remember is that there was so much knowledge in India left over from the higher ages that a lot of it hasn't been used. And it's up for us to dig into it and discover ways of using it, especially in the context of modern man. You know, it's different now. We don't have the option of two jobs, our uncle's job or our dad's job anymore. Predicting career is not easy anymore, you know. Our social lives are different. Um, our lives are so different now. We have to learn to use these techniques in the context of modern living. Okay. When you start thinking of it that way, if you go to an old book and you go, oh, none of this makes sense. I don't need an elephant anymore. You know, because everything good, you're going to get an elephant, right? In the old Indian books. Look at those and try to translate them into the modern context. Like there's this chapter on chastity and woman astrology, female astrology, what you need to look for on a woman's chart to see if you should marry her. It's like, oh, skip that. That's so barbaric. Don't need that there. But the reality is, there's some really deep psychological truths in that. And if you apply the information psychologically, well, the person I said who uses the cup three technique to build a practice, that's one of them. The psychology behind the female astrology chapters, those barbaric chapters. And she mostly works with women and they love it. It's important and useful. So everything in there, realize that we're in an age of psychological awareness. It's getting downright too much. I mean, you can't watch a TV show without it being about someone's psyche anymore, right? You know what I mean? You just can't go see a fun movie like from the 70s anymore, right? It's all about someone's psyche, you know? Because the common person is thinking along those lines now. It's like, whoa, is that shocking? So we need to take astrology and say, okay, this is what people need now. They need psychology. They need us to look deep into their psyche. How can I take this technique that looks like it has nothing to do with psychology and find what it's telling psychology? Because it is. Everything that's predictable externally is a symbol of what's happening within the psyche. Find out what that technique is showing. Like in Shad Bala, there's all these calculations of a strength of a planet. What part of the psyche are we evaluating there when we look at a certain planet's strength? Think about it along those lines, and then you'll really find the way to go deep into the person with these techniques that in the old books are all about predictions. When that was at a time when people's lives were hard. People were hungry, people needed money, people needed safety and security. You couldn't travel without bandits. It's a different world, you know? They needed a different astrology than we do. I remember when I was talking to my brother-in-law and I told him when I was 16, I was driving all over the country. And he looks at me, he goes, what about the bandits? I'm like, what bandits? He goes, don't you have bandits? I'm like, we don't have bandits in America. Well, in parts of India, they still have bandits. And if you're driving your car down the desert road through the middle of the desert, you might actually get bandited. Isn't that cool? I'm like, let's go. It sounds fun. So that was the world they were dealing with. We don't have any of those problems. Our problem is we can't live with ourselves, right? We got plenty of stuff to live on, right? All the food we need, all the shelter we need. Most of the people have enough money we need, but we still are struggling to live with ourselves. That's our problem. How are we going to live with myself or that other person, right? Same difference. So my favorite thing about Vedic astrology is taking these cryptic techniques and turn them into a technique that shows me who the person is. So I know I just want to give ways that we can contribute to this grand science. And of course, ACVA has contributed by working hard to create a foundation of support, which is really, really important for the majority of people really need a support structure. The wonderful thing about ACVA is that they've been flexible and open. it hasn't been a rigid militant institution. Some people are like, oh, institutions, because they can be rigid, but I've really seen ACVA to be a very flexible, open, dynamic organization. And that's what we need as we move forward with astrology, because astrology is in a state of explosion that it's been in since really the beginning of ACVA's days, when 5 people got together on a whim and said, hey, let's have a conference, right? And boom, years later, so much has happened. I remember it was amazing how many people got together for those conferences. And, it's like, I remember in the late 90s when I first started attending, we didn't know that there could be that many Vedic astrologers, because no one did it, right? It's like, no one did it then. But now there's YouTubers that have over 200,000 subscribers. There's that many people that care now. I mean, I felt like when I went to the first ACVA conference, if I remember right, there was 274 attendees. Okay. And I was like, wow, I can't believe there's so many people doing Vedic astrology, right? And thanks to ACVA, now, and other organizations like Baba, Sisterhood, and just the creation of this opportunity that ACVA created, that ISCAR created, and so on. Now there's YouTubers with hundreds of thousands of subscribers because that many people care about what we're doing. And I think it's going to continue to grow, but in a different way than it's grown. Okay. From my observation out there of what's been happening with my students and stuff, we went through this fad period of 5 or 6 years where Vedic astrology peaked as a fad, maybe a decade. What I kept hearing was Vedic astrology is so accurate. It's way more accurate than Western astrology. And everyone was running to Vedic astrologers, right? I knew lots of astrologers that were very busy. And then boom, a few years ago, maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I started tapering down, where all of a sudden the faddish quality of Vedic astrology diminished. That's a good thing. That always happens with the fad. Something gets pumped up, and then it starts declining, and then the reality lasts. A lot of people who are managing as Vedic astrologers that I've witnessed and seen started struggling. They couldn't keep their businesses going because they didn't have the fad quality behind them, okay? And the ones who went deep and the ones who could predict didn't have that problem, okay? And so we live in a time now where people are not going to show up because they heard Vedic astrology is more accurate than Western. Because they heard that, they went to Vedic astrologers who didn't predict better than a Western astrologer did necessarily. And so now it's just back to astrology. So now it's more about substance. A lot of people were lucky for a few years to catch that fad window. Okay, everything goes through a fad, like rollerblading in the 90s, went through this huge fad. All these rollerblade companies, by 2000, they're all out of business, except a few that really could keep going. It happens with everything. Vedic astrology has passed at that fad stage. So now it's about substance. And it's the substance we make that is going to make people want to come to Vedic astrology because we prove that it works. And that's why I wanted to encourage people to go deep and make good predictions. It doesn't work as good anymore to get on YouTube and make videos and have everyone come. A lot of people I know who that was the magic formula from are like having money problems now. Okay? Because people heard it all before that Vedic astrology is the best thing. But it's not better than Western astrology. It's as good as your integrity and intention and love for astrology. That's really what it comes back down to. The most important thing about this science is that you're in love with it. You have to love it. If you're doing it because you want success or money or praise, you're going to suffer a lot. Okay? You have to do it because you love it. It's really the secret to success. If you love it, it's contagious, you know? And you'll get out of your way to do a good job with it. And that's really important. If you're there for the money, if you're there for the success, if you're there for the fame, you're going to get in the way of yourself. You're going to cause conflict. You can even have conflict with clients because they say, I don't think so. And you're like, I got to prove myself right. They don't, if they say I don't think so, then say, okay, that's fine. Work around it. Find a way to use that. The only way we can get out of the way of ourselves is if we love something more than our lower selves, right? Our petty selves. Now, if you're really in love with someone, you're able to shed your stuff that you don't need to be there for them, right? We need to do that for astrology. It's not about us. If you want ego validation, go play video games and get a high score or something, you know? This is about a huge thing that has the power to impact many people, and the only way to approach it is to be in love with it. The longer your love affair with astrology, that beginning stage where all you can do is think about it and hold the books, the better. I remember back in the 90s, you know, I used to curl up with my Brihat Parashara at night. Like it was a beautiful woman, you know? I mean, I had the same feeling in my heart. Like I had this cherished beloved. And I read that book so much, the edges of the pages are lacy, you know? So now she's wearing lingerie. Okay. You know, I've got like lace on my Brihat Parashara. The pages are worn thin. And I had the same feeling. I used to go to bed and read my book and think, gosh, this is just like curling up with my dream girl. I feel the same feeling in my heart. And that's what's going to make it all worth it. And so I hope everyone finds greater love for astrology. And I know everyone loves it or you wouldn't be here, you know? But that's the most important part of finding your niche in this world with astrology. Do what you love with it. People say, what should I study next? I'm like, I don't know. What do you want to know? What do you want to do with astrology? What do you want to figure out? There is no next. There's only where your passion is taking you. Because it's going to lead you right towards what you need to know to find out about yourself. I really don't know what else to say. I'm just really glad that astrology has grown to this level. It blows my mind that, you know, 1997, 274 people seemed like a huge world. And now it's insane what people have done. I have no idea how many ACVA students are these days, or how many people watching this video, but I know that we're touching thousands every time we do something with astrology now. And I really want everyone's impact. My wish is for everyone's impact to be beautiful and meaningful. And the only way to do that is to trust your love. Open your mouths, contribute, and be open to sharing every aspect of it wherever you might find yourself, you know? And really, one last thing I want to say, I really hope that, you know, we have this new thing going on with AI now, which means we're on the verge of having a slave to do all the rigorous, hard testing work of astrology. You know, we've had the computers. Okay, I can calculate charts and I can statistically test things, right? But for the first time, we have AI that can do this kind of work for us. And I really think that as we get AI involved, not to do readings, but to actually test our ideas, to test our calculations, that we're going to be able to take Vedic astrology or astrology of all systems to a whole nother level. Because there's so many old techniques that we're not even sure how to use right. Okay, what is this really, how well does this really work? How does it have to be adapted? And I hope there's some nerdy little AI guys there who fall in love with astrology and prove to be the men of the future in astrology and test things that just wasn't possible for us to test. I remember, doing a research on 20 charts would take a long time on one subject, 100 charts. Wow, it's a whole week sitting there on only 100 charts, and that's not enough. And AI can do thousands of charts in a short while, in an hour, and we'll have really be able to solve some of the dilemmas we have in astrology and the conflicts. And I really think that's going to be the next big step. I think we had this big step that we started in the 90s, started with ACVA, started with this boost of astrology, and we've taken the knowledge to a higher place for sure. It's on a collective level. A lot of people know a lot of good Vedic astrology these days. To take it to the next level, we need to do severe testing, statistical testing, and with AI, we can do that without ruining the rest of our lives and getting a backache. So it's really my hope some people dive into that. Yeah. So, and then I really want to bless all the lives of the new astrologers we have coming up, that your dreams and hopes for astrology mature. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wilhelm, for the wonderful words of wisdom that you just gave us. Very important key points there for the future of Vedic astrology. And that was an amazing commencement speech. So thank you so much for that.